What does it take to transform a life? A year? A lifetime? Or a moment in time? Tony Budle from British Humanitarian Aid tells a remarkable story of how his life was transformed by a moment-in-time encounter. On the edge of utter despair, his marriage on the rocks, having tried to end his life several times, God unexpectedly spoke into his life. Tony takes us back to where it all began, on the seafront in Dover in 1988, where he received his God-given mandate. This is the story of Tony Budle of British Humanitarian Aid, a remarkable story of a loving God who intervenes into Tony's life in the face of his despair.
My life was at the gutter, basically. I'd driven trucks for 23 years, coming in and out of Dover, going all over the continent, hardly ever home. And then 1985, I came back. My marriage was rocky. And I said to my wife, we sort our marriage out or I'm going to go. And she said, good, there's the door. One of those sort of things, So I went, and then for 3 years I lived in the truck. They've got everything in them, these trucks, they're brilliant, And I'd come into Dover off those ferries, drop the trailer, wait for my boss to bring another one down. We'd go to the supermarket, go to the laundrette, and off I'd go again. So it was a tremendously miserable time for me, because the more alone I was, the more alone I became. Like a spring that was getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And 12th of May 1988, I'd done the usual thing, arrived in Dover, dropped the trailer, went to the supermarket. And I walked along this seafront and sat on this bench on a grey, miserable day, not unlike today really. And as I just sat with my own thoughts, my own misery, someone called my name. And I looked around, there was no one there, and then again someone called my name, and I thought, well, someone's going to get a smack in the ear in a minute, being 6'3". And the third time I realised it wasn't an outer voice, it was an inner voice. And I really thought I'd gone loopy. I'd lost the plot. I mean, I'd never been to church, I'd never prayed, I'd never done anything for anyone unless they paid me. That was my life. And suddenly I'm hearing this voice. And then the words that were spoken changed my life unbelievably. Unbelievably. Just, Tony, I remember saying, what? To God, what? Because I knew it was God, I knew it was. And he said, I've given everyone a cross to bear, some heavy, some not so heavy. I'm going to give you the spiritual strength to carry other people's crosses. And whilst you do this for me, I'm going to carry yours. And I just burst into tears. I wept, and I wept, and I wept. And for some inexplicable reason, my whole life scrolled in front of me, like a film, from earliest childhood. And my only memories of childhood were being beaten, and orphanages and all that sort of thing. It was not a pleasant childhood at all. And then joining the army, and nobody loved me in the army. And I had to forgive everyone that had hurt me, physically, emotionally, mentally, and ask for their forgiveness. And it brought me right up to that day, 12th of May 1988. And I looked up like this to this grey, horrible clouds and said, so you're there after all, God. And that was the change of my life. And from that moment on I felt free. It's the only word I can describe, free. I felt free. Like these giant weights had been lifted off my shoulders. And I was alive. I tried suicide twice in 1988 and failed. I knew the third time I would do it, but I suddenly felt alive, and it was great. It was brilliant.
After driving trucks for 23 years, with his marriage in turmoil and 3 years isolation working from his truck, on the 12th of May 1988, Tony hears the voice of God, changing his life through these simple words: "Carry the crosses of others, while I promise to carry yours." We now go to the British Humanitarian Aid warehouse in Canterbury, Kent, where Tony continues with his story.
I literally, after 2 hours of crying my eyes out, got off the bench, walked across the road, phoned my boss and said, "Come and get your truck. I'm never going to drive it again." He said, "You know, what? Do you want more money?" I said, no, just never going to drive a truck again. And I walked away from it all. Then I spent a long time, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 months, searching for what was missing in my life. I mean, I had to get a bed sit, you know, because I've been thrown out, so I had a little bed sit. I got £33 on the dole, so I lived on sort of 50 pence worth of chips at the chippy each day. I just, you know, and I didn't care. I was happy. Then I found what was missing in my life was me as a person, because everything that ever happened, the relationships, my marriage, everything, was always someone else's fault. Mr. Innocent, you know. How dare they? And yet I realised it was my fault. I'm the one, you know, instead of saying to my wife, "Well, I've got to drive the truck to make the money." If my family were that important, I would have given up truck driving and got 3 jobs a day, you know, to support them. So I was the one at fault. And once you realise that, once you say, "Look, I created my own life," then you change it. And I joined the Samaritans, because having gone through the suicide thing with, you know, myself, I thought I was in a position to help others, and I enjoyed that to a degree. The problem was that everything's done on the phone. I want to say, look, put the phone down, let's go eye to eye, you know. So, but it was a great experience. And then out of the blue, 5 different people on 5 different days offered me the same job. You think, what's going on here? Monday, got just the job for you. Yeah, what's that? Working in a hospital. I said, no, I don't like hospitals, thank you very much. Tuesday, got just the job for you. There's a job going at the hospital. No, I don't like hospitals. This went on for 5 days. And on the 5th, I thought, I'll phone them up. So I phoned them up, got the job. And I was a porter on casualty X-ray in the Mountbatten Cancer Care Unit. And I suppose I thought, okay, these are the crosses I'm going to bear. This is what God wants me to do. Carry these crosses of these people. And it was an incredible experience working in the hospital.
After walking away from his lifetime of trucking, spending 5 months rediscovering himself, and with God's love taking responsibility for his losses, Tony's life begins to change. He joined the Samaritans, and before long a wonderful opportunity of working in Canterbury Hospital came his way.
I thought these were the crosses that I was going to carry. That the rest of my life I was going to work in a hospital. End of story, you know, that was it. And I realised I'd only been in the hospital 2 hours, and I was walking down the corridor and it was like, yes, you know, yes. And I realised I loved my work. It was never going for the paycheck. That never came into it. The amount of people that I met, people who were dying of cancer, who become so serene. There's something absolutely serene about people who know they're shortly going to die. And every single one of them were my teachers. They all taught me something about me, because I gave them unconditional love. I mean, I absolutely loved the work. And people who got better, they'd come into the hospital to find me to bring me a box of chocolates. A lot of the other porters didn't like me because I did it for love, not for money. And one lady, Ola, She was over 70. And I had to take her for an x-ray, and I went in, so somebody knew, so, you know, hello Bill, hello Irene, I got to know them. And I said, do you mind if I call you Ola? If you didn't well have to. And I thought, oh, there's an angry lady. And took her for the x-ray, and she was really mad, not mental, angry. And each day I talk to her and try and break that ice. And one day I sat by the bed with her and I said, oh look, I don't do this job because I'm paid, I do it because I love people. And I'd like to get to know you, if you have to. And I said, if God could give me a gift right at this moment, it would be for you to get out the bed, and I would take your cancer and get in that bed. That's how I feel. And she started to cry. She said, you would do? I said, I would do that. And we gradually got to know one another. And I talked about God, and she said, I don't believe in God, a load of rubbish. I said, okay, we're going to be in for quite a surprise when you die. And I'd go in the next day and she'd tell me a bit more about that. Tell me a little bit more about that. So we got this conversation going. I told her how I came to God with the voice. And eventually, bless her heart, she died. But she paid me a lovely compliment because they moved into a side room, and before I started work in the mornings, I'd knock on the door. Who is it? Tony. Oh, come in, Tony. And she wouldn't have a wig on. She'd leave it off. She trusted me, and I thought that was a great honour for a woman to do that. And eventually she died, and I was very sad because I wasn't at work. That she died at the weekend. But a daughter came to the hospital with quite a big box. She said, before Mum died, she brought you a present. I said, what did that do? Thinking a box of chocolates or something. But it wasn't. It was a leather-bound Bible. And inside she'd written, to Tony, thank you for showing me the way home. Money couldn't buy that Bible. You know, it's indoors. Money could not buy it. It is so precious. And all these people I met, whether it was children who had accidents, I used to dress up as a clown. You know, the sister on the ward would say, look, we've got a little girl come in, been hit by a bus. Can you go and put your gear on? I go and put all my clown gear on, come in and make them laugh. And I'm a born clown anyway. But they all taught me something. And one girl, and it's a story, if I can tell it without getting emotional, I will. But she had got off the bus, she had got a certificate, Mum was on the other side of the road, and she just ran to her mum. Got hit by a bus coming from the other direction. She was 12 years old, her name was Emma. They brought her in, it was about 3 in the afternoon, and because by then I got to know the ambulance drivers, we looked at each other and one gave me a not going to make it sort of look. She lost a leg right up to the groin, and it was really sad, you know, because I love kids. And they took her into ITU, and she lasted the night, then another night, then another night. And eventually she got better. She made it. I mean, it's incredible courage of this little girl. And, you know, that was 20 years ago. And then my wife, who works in an office, she said to me, oh, a girl came in today. She's got a new girl working for us called Emma. Ever so nice. She knows you. I said, knows me. She said, yeah, she only got one leg. And it's gone full circle. And now I see her. It's just such an emotional thing that to know you've done a little bit. I used to go in every day and chat to her, and she'd say, I've lost a leg. And I said, you could have lost your life, Emma. You know, you could have lost your life, but you haven't. And we've become great friends. If I sort of phone the office and she answers, hello, Tony. You know. So all those things were God teaching me through the patients in the hospital. To realise, you think you've got problems, forget it. Look at these people. You know, going to the doctor and say, oh, I've got a pain in the back, that's fine. But when the doctor said that pain in your breast or the pain in your chest, you've got cancer. That the courage that these people have to go through that, I wouldn't like to go through it, but they do. So they all taught me something.
After showing Ola the way home through his acts of kindness at hospital, Tony continues to reach into other lives, including a young girl, Emma, aged 13, who Tony remains friends with today, 20 years later.
I was watching the news. It was near Christmas, and it was about the death of the Ceausescus in Romania. And they started showing all these kids in cots and orphanages that they'd discovered. And I've never seen anything like it. 5 children in urine-sodden cots, sores on their heads, shaved. I couldn't believe it. And I said to my Valerie, I've got to go there. And she said, well, if that's what you feel in your heart, because that's where God is, you've got to go there, go and do it. Of course, all those truck driving experience suddenly came into play because, country to country, I've been doing it for years. So with my rather battered Volvo estate, and I hired a trailer, I filled it with all the things I thought they needed and set off for an orphanage in Bucharest. The only one I could find out about was the orphanage of the co-workers of Mother Teresa. So arriving in Bucharest, 5 days later, crossing Europe, it then took about another day to find the place. I didn't speak the language and trying to find people who spoke English, but I got there. Knocked on the door. A nun came to the door. How do you greet a nun? I didn't know. I mean, hello. And I showed her this list. I said, for you, for the children. You stop. She went back in, then came and said, Mother, see you come. I said, okay, so I go and see the Mother Superior, and walked in, but it wasn't, it was Mother Teresa. She was paying a flying visit, and it was just unbelievable. And I spent the whole day with her. The first thing which really threw me, I said to her, I've got all these things for you. She said, thank you very much, I don't want them. I said, I'm sorry, I've just driven all the way from England. She said, because of who I am, everyone wants to help me. Look around you, I've got everything. But there is an orphanage to the east of here called Platerest. I want you to go there. And I said, do you have an address? She says, no, God will show you the way. And I thought, okay. And then when I went to leave, she says, Tony, come here. And of course, she's so tiny. I came up to you. Bend your head. And I said, oh, she's going to give me a blessing. So I bent my head. And she kissed me on both cheeks. And it just absolutely threw me. I just burst into tears. But I found Platerest. And I'd seen the television programs. I half knew what to expect, but nothing prepares you for what you do find. And this big buxom woman at the orphanage, I said, I've been sent here by Mother Teresa. But what I know, if you went into an orphanage, what you expect noise, children make a noise. Come on, that's life, children make a noise. It was silent. There was no noise. And I actually thought I'd gone to the wrong place. But she kept saying, you go away, come in, you go away. And I said, sorry, Mother Teresa sent me and I'm coming in. No. In the end, I sort of pushed past and went in. I started opening doors, left, right, nothing. And I thought, well, there can't be any children here. Then I opened the door, went to close it, and the stench that hit me, I couldn't believe. And I opened the door again. And in this room, the size of like your bedroom, that sort of size, had a small window with bars on it, and on 2 mattresses were 40 children. All they had on were t-shirts. There was so much excrement you didn't know if they were boys or girls. And the food was in a bucket in the centre of the room. And I went mad. Mother Teresa's been quoted saying, angry mad, and I suppose I was. And I started picking these children up, trying to find water to wash them, and getting clothes and things out of the... I was out of my depth, totally. I mean, I just was totally out of my depth. And I thought, what can I do? And I said to them, I will be back. And all the way back to England, I was thinking, well, I've done one trip to Romania, but how can I not return? And so I went back, but this time with 4 vehicles, because people heard about my work, wanted to join, got in the local paper. Then the next trip there was 8, and the next trip 12, and it started this snowball. And what we started in Romania is still going today. About 20 years later, it's still going today. And I came back, and then the war in the Yugoslavia, the former Yugoslavia, erupted. And we were seeing the pictures of refugees, and I thought, I've got to go there as well. And again, Valerie said, if it's in your heart, go there. And again, on my own, because I needed to test the water, see how dangerous it was. Found a refugee camp, and that started that work. So it's been unbelievable. I mean, I didn't know what God had in store. I thought it was the hospital. No, I've got other plans for you, boy. And all that learning about people and emotions all started to come to the fore brilliantly. God's plans are brilliant.
Having met Mother Teresa and seeing the desperate need of children in several Romanian orphanages, Tony begins to form what is later to become British Humanitarian Aid. Starting with his own Volvo, transporting much-needed aid, this was soon to become a 100-vehicle-strong convoy to desperately needy areas.
I think doing this now for 22 years, beginning in Romania, Croatia, Bosnia, Kosovo, Macedonia, and now of course Ukraine, is that we can all do something, that we've all got a talent, and to be able to go to visit a very poor family in their home, hand out some toiletries, some food, some clothing, and do it with that eye to eye, hand to hand, heart to heart, then the entire planet, if you like, starts to become a family. They're not people in Kosovo, they're no longer people in Ukraine. They're part of my sort of family, and it's just so lovely to be able to do that. And I think if you do things for no reward, I don't do this because I want to be recognised for what I do, or to get an MBE, which I never will do because I've never scored a goal for England. But the rewards are immeasurable when it's put against what they give us compared to what we give them. I always come away feeling I've received more from the people I've helped than they have received from me, because each time they make me feel like a better person. Money can't buy the friendships I've got in all these places, and it's just brilliant. It's just wonderful the way that if you do things for no rewards, then the rewards are immeasurable. So I'm very, very lucky to be able to do what I do, and every single day I thank God for inspiring me to do more, to help more, to have new ideas of how we can help people. Yeah, I enjoy it immensely. I thought it was the end. I was in so much pain emotionally. I didn't want to play this game called life anymore. And in the space of a very short period of time, my life changed. And it was so incredible. It was so unbelievable. Because I'd never been to church. I'd never prayed. I mean, if you wanted me to do something for you, you had to pay me. That was my life. And hearing that voice of God, Jesus, I don't know what the voice was, but it was a voice full of love, and then crying for 2 hours of all this emotional rubbish that was coming out. And I realised that I wasn't the victim. You see, everything that happened to me, whether it was relationships, marriage, was somebody else's fault. Then I had to realise, hey, come on, you were the perpetrator. You created the misery yourself. And I had to address all that. So then I became so light. It was like these huge weights had been lifted off my shoulders. And you think, well, that's it, God's given me that. And it's a free ticket now to heaven. I don't have to do anything. How wrong can you be? God doesn't want people to just sit on the backside to doing nothing. God and Jesus Christ want workers. People who are going to get their hands dirty, who are going to go out there, and so that Jesus Christ can work through us. See, we have the tangible hands. Jesus doesn't. He needs, but he's the motivator, and that's important. And that began a journey which has been difficult, challenging, but wonderful. Absolutely, unbelievably wonderful. And anybody else who's going through that misery, and suddenly, if they hear that knock on their heart, I would say to you from the deepest part of my being, respond to it. Because when you give unconditional love, and you will learn how to do that. It comes naturally. And life becomes just beautiful. Do it. Do it today.
Join us next time as we travel with Tony to Chernihiv in northern Ukraine and meet the many volunteers, including Victoria Filatova, director of the Arata Family Centres. If you'd like to contact us about any of the issues raised, please write to us at On Location, TBN Europe, PO Box 448, Dover, Kent, CT16 9EZ. Or telephone us on +44 1304 224 280. Or email us at onlocation@tbneurope.org. We would like to thank Tony Budle, Victoria Filatova, and the many that helped with the making of this programme.